Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining our Blue Horizon seminar today. So today's seminars will be about women in aquaculture, and we have our center manager and research fellow, Dr. Helen Curry here, and she's the manager of our Center for Blue Governance. And today, very luckily, we have our chairholder, Professor Pierre Fayet, here as well. Pierre, would you like to say a few words to open this seminar, please?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know why you say lucky. I'm always here. That will be a good seminar because I think the role of women is not put up front in the aquaculture. And I have recent example in Cambodia where the most successful farm are run by women in Cambodia and in Ivory Coast. I was in Ivory Coast a few weeks ago, attending some training sessions for the aquaculture development. It's mainly the tilapia. And I was very surprised to see that most of the attendees were women. So I think there's quite a significant good future for women in the aquaculture, and that's I'm very happy for that, and I really thanks her, for developing, and continuing this series of workshops. So I will give the floor to Helen, our big boss. Thank you.
Yes, thanks both. And thanks again also to her for running these series. They've been going really well, so it's glad to see another nice turnout. I'm Helen Curry. As has been mentioned, I'm the manager for the Centre for Blue Governance, and I'm also a research fellow at the University of Portsmouth, and I'll be chairing today's really exciting session. My personal background is in fisheries ecology, monitoring and management, sustainable infrastructure systems, and also environmental policy. But I'm also a really strong proponent, so in favor of equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives, and more importantly, in terms of actions. And so, as relevant to today's discussions, I'm a big advocate for amplifying the voices and experiences of women in science, academia, and of course, industry. And this is extremely important in the aquaculture industry, which, despite women's significant contributions, we often face a number of barriers, both prior to and throughout the lifespan of a career. Amplifying women's voices and promoting gender equality in this sector, or acting as role models to the next generation of women in the aquaculture industry, is extremely important to ensure that a diverse array of perspectives, experiences, and critical ways of thinking are contributing towards the development of truly sustainable aquaculture practices. And sustainable aquaculture is vital for society to ensure the availability of safe, nutritional, and reliable food sources to contribute to the blue economy and the maintenance and improvement of the wider environment. And we're going to hear more about this today from our lineup of experts. And today we have Ita Suwalia. She's the Director of People, Fish and Forest Indonesia, and she's also a PhD student at the School of Environment in the University of Queensland. We also have Elena Piana. She's Group Sustainability Manager at Regal Springs. And we have Elizabeth Okulo, co-founder and CEO of Aquamnara. I'm really excited to hear from these three incredibly inspiring and innovative women who are working within the aquaculture sector. And today we're going to hear perspectives from Asia, Europe, and Africa, respectively. Each of our speakers are going to have 8 minutes, and I don't want to take up any more time, so we have more room for discussion and question and answer sessions later. And so without further ado, I'm going to properly introduce our first speaker, who will be Ita Suwalia. I believe Ita is joining us all the way from Australia, so there's quite a difference in time zones. So thanks again very much for joining us today. I'm going to hand over to you to discuss your talk, which I believe is entitled Women in Indonesia Aquaculture Industry, Challenges and Strategies for Bridging Gender Gap.
Okay, thank you very much, Helen. It is my pleasure, and thank you also for Portsmouth University to have me to have a kind of discussion with other speakers. I'm very proud that all of the speakers at our event is all of women. So it's emphasized how the leaderships and also the role of women itself. We try to mainstreaming the genders and also trying to discuss and then strategies or propose strategy to fill up the gap. So as mentioned by Helen, I'm Ita Swalia. I'm director of this is NGO, foundations developed by me and my friends, People, Fish and Forest Indonesia. So yes, currently I based in Brisbane, studying at the University of Queensland. Tonight, I would like to share how women in aquaculture sectors, especially industry in Indonesia, the challenges faces and also the strategies, proposed strategy, how to bridge this gap. As the background, as I believe that all of the participants and also speakers knows that how important the aquaculture itself. If we since the latest report from SOFIA FAO, Statistical FAO launched last June, it's mentioned we can see that over the 7 decades that aquaculture is consistently growing, while the capture fisheries, it's been like 4 decades or 40 years stagnant in terms of the productions. So we sense that how the aquaculture is keep growing. Of course, we would like to have it sustainably, including at the social aspect. In this case, is women participations and also beneficial from these sectors. Indonesia as the third main fisheries producer, in this case is aquaculture producer, have the significant roles, contribute about 7% of the total productions of aquaculture's fisheries globally. As the archipelagic country, so we sense that the global patterns, it happened as well in Indonesia. We can see over 10 years, the aquaculture is keep growing and sometimes up and down. But we sense that compared to the capture fisheries, the gap is quite high in terms of the productions. So in aquaculture itself, we produce about the 14 million ton of fisheries, while the capture is mainly 6 million ton every year. Aquaculture also play a significant role in terms of the employment. It's employ about 2 million people. So it's similar, is amount of the Brisbane city populations. And then the export revenue is 5.6 billion per year US dollar. So it's quite high in terms of amount, but still in compared to other sectors GDP, the fishery sector still contribute 2.3% for Indonesian economy, which is we can see that a lot of big opportunity that we can improve more from the aquaculture sectors. So the question is back, where are the women in Indonesia fisheries industry? In the slide, you can see here that we have from the various sectors, for example, for salt farmer, fish processors, fish farmer, marketing, and also interport fish marketing and fisheries. The amount of women, you can see that the blue color are men, so mainly dominated by men. However, if we can see in the fish processing sectors, is women are there, it's 5 times higher in terms of numbers compared to men. So if you would like to targeting more women participating or targeted processing unit is a big opportunity that a lot of improve that we can do for women. And then I have here in terms of the supply chains, for example, this is shrimp industry. And also I believe that mainly happen for others aquaculture commodity. We can see from the upstream to downstream, the women play a role. It's very small. For example, in the hatchery, mainly women working in the laboratory. And then for the farming or on farm, mainly women working for the sorting or post-harvest. I visited some big shrimp farming company, the ratio between men and women is very high, the gap in terms of number. For example, in 100 employee, it's only 6 women there. Mainly they are working for cook. While in the fish collectors or shrimp collectors, very small amount of women. But however, in the processors, mainly it's about 70 until 80% the labor are women in the fish processor or shrimp processors. And then we go to the domestic market. Its amount of the women in the marketing is about 70%, while in the export is very low number. It's mainly the exporter mainly lead by men. However, interestingly, in the seaweed industry, this is Indonesia case. So this supply chain have very intensive, extensive woman role. So from the hatchery, from preparing the seed, you can see a lot of women there until the export market. So from the hatchery, women prepare to tie up the seaweed seedling. And then farmers also, they work in the going to the sea or the ponds. However, some Indonesia's quite vary. For example, in South Sulawesi, women not going for the sea, but due to the landscape and also the obstacle in terms of the seas and also the currents. But in the Maluku and also East Nusa Tenggara in Indonesia, mainly women go to the seaweed farming as well. And then post-harvest, and then collectors, in the processors, women mainly working to dry the seaweed after harvesting, as well as in the industry. And at the marketing level, only few of the women that led the company. For example, for the one association, seaweed associations with the member 21, it's only 2 until 3 company led by women. So in terms of the positions in the decision making, women still low in this seaweed and also shrimp cases in Indonesia. In terms of the challenges faced by women working with the aquaculture industry on farm and also processing, we see that the barrier in the participations, because some culturals and also social and economic factors become a barrier, and also work divisions at home. It's also a part of the challenges by women. And then the second, access for the training, technology, and finance, which is if we do business as usual, it can be a barrier for women. That's why I invite the donors, NGOs, or other development program to by intervention or intentionally, we have to allocate more the program for women. And also the challenges, the limited opportunities for leaderships, and also to have a decision making, especially in the farming, because mainly the farm owned by the men. And then as the proposed strategies of the interventions, the first I would like to call donors government to have the specific intervention of the program to put the gender mainstreaming. At least you, for example, donor have to ask or require the program to have a JETC program or specific program for women. And then the second, for program that capacity building we need to do. I'm surprised that Pierre mentioned, for example, in Cambodia, many women can come to attend the training. I'm very happy to hear that. Probably the time and also the place is adequate for women. So for example, the time in my experience, we always put the time where the woman not busy with the domestic work. So between 9 AM until 11 AM, they can do or attend the meeting. And also we have the proper place where the woman also can bring their children to attend the training. And then the third one for financial inclusions, because mainly the business owning by husband, So for women to access the credit from the bank, it's quite difficult because for the collateral, the name of the properties is belong to the husband. So it is very important to have the special like financial access for women to have the easiest for them to access the, for example, to loan or the others fund. And then the last but not least, how to ensure the representative of women, not only by numbers, but also how their voice can be heard during the meeting or decision making about the business and also others development program itself. So I would like to call all of the participant speakers on other programs that equality, women and women equally lead, participate, and also benefit from the aquaculture industry and also others development program. Thank you. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you so much. That was an incredible overview of work involved in. And we'll take questions at the end. So if all of our attendees could just pop those into the chat box so that we can come back to our speakers after our discussion section. Our second talk will now be from Elena Piana. She's the Group Sustainability Manager at Regal Springs, and she's experienced from working in a number of different countries across 4 continents. And I've taken a direct quote from your LinkedIn profile, Elena, and I thought it fitted perfectly here that says, "Difference is what makes us stronger." So that's extremely fitting for today's discussion. I'm going to hand over to Elena now, who will be sharing her personal perspectives on women's representation in the global aquaculture industry, discussing where organizational change is needed, including support and allyship from men within the aquaculture industry. Over to you, Elena.
Hi, Helen, and thank you for the introduction. And hello, everyone. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Elena. I work with Regal Springs, which is the #1 sustainable tilapia producer worldwide. And part of my role is looking after the social sustainability of our operation as well as the communities we work in and touch with our employment opportunities and the way we run things. But I previously also worked for another 10 years in sustainability roles. And I had previously the opportunity to develop a strategy for gender equality, and that gave me really the chance to understand the topic in depth. Our friend Ita gave us a really fantastic in-depth overview of really what you would find if you were to walk in one of the many types of operational units in an aquaculture sector. So she talked to us about processing plants and how the majority is women. And then as you move away and you move farther up the chain, is mainly male dominated. That is very much the situation. Pretty much every aquaculture sector of most countries, not only in Southeast Asia. And additionally to that, we also see that stratification on a role basis, so not only on the unit of operations, but actually within the same unit, you will see there's a lot more women at the base of the pyramid in roles that are paid less, in roles that are hard, in roles that are unstable, so they might not have full-time permanent work. So it's really tough. It can be really, really tough. And that's pretty much, it's not just the aquaculture industry, right? But what I would like to do in my few minutes as a speaker in this webinar is to ask you all to take 30 seconds and to close your eyes and imagine what it would be like if today, while we're sitting in our chairs, we lived in a world where the situation was capsized. So instead of being in a place where 80% of politicians are men, where 90% of the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are men, what if that was reversed and For the last 500 years, most of those positions were taken by women. This is a vision that we should all stop and think about for a second, because we need to be able to imagine a different future to decide what we can do today to achieve that different reality. And women have different needs than men physiologically, but also because of the role that they cover in society. Women are usually the primary caregivers, both for children, but also for the elderly. Women still today do about 1 hour of additional work every day in house chores. That's like 7 hours a week. That is in a good case scenario. Sometimes it's more. So if we don't change that, if let's say this is still the situation, we have equality, but women are still working mainly in these roles. So our needs of what our day is like is much different, right? And we were the decision makers. I would like to imagine that probably, policies and legislations would be in such a way that flexible working conditions were just the norm, was not the exception, was not, oh, I'm giving you flexible working conditions because of the situation you're in. Maybe that was just the norm, and everyone was going to be just on board with it, no problem whatsoever. There are systems to account for these things are easy to implement, or maybe the working hours would be different. Instead of being an 8 hours with 1 hour break in the middle, it would be broken down in a way that people could go and pick up the kids from school or drop them off. I think it would be a really different world, and it would still function absolutely fine. And I believe this is an important exercise because, it makes us see how change is achievable. It's not far-fetched. It's nothing impossible. It's really, like most things, is mainly about changing the way we perceive what's normal, what's not, and what's possible and what's not. And webinars like this are important to foster the conversation and the critical thinking. Now, people in charge make decisions that they think are the best decisions, and that comes from their experience, and that's why it's so hard for women to advance in their career progression and to find some sort of work-life balance. And there's a lot of research, and we know exactly at what stage in our career the gap starts. And it's mainly when women have children and take that time off work, and then it's really hard to get back in there. Stereotypes also play a big role. So there's that. And a lot of the work focuses on how do we help women in advancing, and there are courses and more education, and there is empowerment and mentorship and creating a new generation that is more confident, that goes and asks for things. You will see, for example, especially in the UK now, I see all these new advertisements of universities, and for the first time in forever, you see at the center of these ads are young women that talk about change and talk about how they're the best, they can make it work, they can do better, and it's absolutely amazing. But this is very, very new. And so I would like for a second, I would like us to recognize that while it's absolutely essential that women keep working on themselves and increasing their confidence and their skill set and demanding a seat at the table, we also need to do a much better job at engaging the other 50% of the population. So the men, those are, well, it's 50% of the population, but it's really the majority of those people that are now in those positions and are holding the structure. And so because they are such a big portion of our society and our workplaces, that is also where the power for triggering organizational change really resides. I don't know if any of the people present here or who will watch this webinar has ever read a book called I Am a Girl from Africa. It's written actually by an African woman who became a worker for the United Nations, and her name is Elizabeth Nyamayaro, if I'm pronouncing her surname right. And she tells the story of empowering communities in Africa on gender equality. More specifically, there were a lot of issues on violence as well. But she, one of the most powerful examples and one of the most powerful stories that she managed to trigger and support was the presence of a tavern, of all things, where it was a tavern that was put together by men, run by men, and it was called the She Tavern. And it was a place where there was this peer-to-peer work of, actually it was men empowering other men in taking on a role as protectors instead of just ignoring the problem or keeping the problem separate. So yeah, I truly believe that is at this stage that we're at, it's really key that we do a better job, a more structured job in creating those bridges between women in employment and men in employment. Maybe it's through mentorship programs, but we definitely should be looking at creating those alliances because they can do an amazing work for us. And I can see we have a few men on this webinar. I know it can be hard for men to keep hearing over and over again this topic about gender equality. And the topic is gender equality, but really most of the times we end up talking about women because, well, that is where most of the weaknesses in the society are, right? However, the reason why there is a problem with women is because there is also an issue with our stereotypes on set of men. So I think we need to recognize that it's not just a women only or a men only problem, it's both. And the truth is that it's well documented that by taking down these barriers and these stereotypes for women, we also create a better society and a better world for men as well, where they are not tied themselves either to stereotyped gender roles. So yeah, this is my take on gender equality in aquaculture. And yeah, thank you so much for giving me the time to express my experience and opinions on the topic.
Thank you so much, Elena. I think that was a really nice exercise just for people to get into the mindset of where you're coming from. And I think that should hopefully open some really good discussion later in the session. So thank you for that. We will move on now to our third and final speaker, Elizabeth Okuler. Elizabeth's talk is titled Empowering Women in Sustainable Aquaculture, Innovations and Impact. We're going to hear about the pivotal role of women in advancing sustainable aquaculture practices, and she's going to share insights from her experiences at Aquaculture, where she's both the co-founder and CEO and empowers female fish farmers with data-driven solutions and innovative management techniques. She'll also highlight the importance of gender inclusion in the blue economy to foster resilience and growth in aquaculture communities, which is all great stuff. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Okuler. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aquaculture. What we do at Aquaculture is we are empowering fish farmers through data-driven solutions. Let me take you back. So I'm in Africa. Imagine the largest freshwater lake that is called Lake Victoria. This lake is currently supporting 30 million people who depend on it for food and also to sustain their livelihood. Over the recent past years, we've seen that there has been a reduction in fish stock due to overfishing and the effect of climate change. I remember in 2022 when I visited my grandmother. You see, my grandmother has been a fishmonger for the past 6 decades. She has depended on the lake to raise her family and also provide for them food, pay for them for the school fees so that they are able to get education. The last time I visited her, she, as usual, normally whenever I visit her, she comes with fish and then cook and say like, look, my granddaughter, I've brought you fish, eat fish. So this time when I visited that, she came back empty-handed. And it happened not just once, not just twice, but several occasions. And you see, situation like this is affecting the livelihood of people like my grandmother. And it is not just my grandmother alone. As you can see in this next photo here, she's just receiving few fish from the lake. These are not enough to feed the family and also to feed to also sell and also get a source of living. So there are so many people like my grandmother who are depending on this lake, and also they're not being able to get enough to sustain their source of livelihood. And who are these people? We call them fishmongers, and also some of them are fish farmers. So in terms of women in aquaculture, where are they? Where are they involved? Most of the women across the aquaculture value chain in fisheries, they are engaged at the further end of the value chain, where marketing, value addition is being done, where their only role is being to process the fish, to make it better and sell it in the market. There is still a big gap of women engaged in the pre-production and post-production, as well as in the duration of production. So for these women fishmongers, especially those who are coming from Lake Victoria, they face numerous challenges. And some of the key challenges that they are facing is 30% of them are trapped in Jaboya circle. So Jaboya is a word that means sex for fish. So most of these women, for them to get fish from the lake, they have to sleep with men who are the fishermen, who brings them the fish so that they are able to sell and sustain their family. And currently also, there is the scarcity of fish stock due to overfishing in the lake. We have few women fish farmers who are engaged in the aquaculture sector. And this is because they face numerous challenges, like women are not allowed to own land in my community. For those who are engaged in fish farming, they struggle to get access to a market for their produce. And also they don't have access to finances that can help them grow their business. For those who get access to this informal financing means, they end up being exploited by these people. These women fish farmers also lack the technical know-how, and majority of them are affected by insecurities where people go and steal their fish, and also insecurity in terms of themselves. So last year I started Aquaculture, and the reason I started Aquaculture because I wanted to help people like my grandmother so that they are able to get fish in a dignified manner. And the thought process that I went through was, why don't I develop a company that is going to enable these people to get access to the necessary tools that they need and resources so that they are able to thrive? So what happened, I thought through like, for us to make this happen, then it means that I'll be working with the fish farmers and also with the fishmongers who are the fish traders. So what we do at Aquaculture in terms of our intervention is we provide end-to-end data-driven aquaculture solutions that offer comprehensive suite of services. So when we work with a female fish farmer, is we give them access to quality input from vetted and verified suppliers. So these inputs are in either in fingerlings or in feeds or in equipment that they need. And then during the production, we provide them with necessary tools to enable them to monitor their farms so that they are able to get the necessary data and be able to make better decisions for their farm. And this we do through water quality monitoring. We also provide them with expert connections that take them through the necessary things that they need to understand in order to practice sustainable aquaculture. And these experts help them to navigate different challenges and also improve their practices. And lastly, we provide them access to market, whereby we connect the fish farmers with the fish traders so that the fish traders, the fishmongers are able to get consistent supply of fish to sell, and now the fish farmers are able to get better returns from their production. And the whole process of empowering women in aquaculture is through three innovations that we are really keen on. And one of them is promoting data-driven solutions, which is where we use data to optimize fish farming practices. And in addition to that, we train these women in using data for better farm management. The second aspect is general innovation management technique, where we introduce them to sustainable aquaculture practices, give them skill sets on leadership and general business management, how to manage their finances. And thirdly, we provide them with the resources and also financing. Recently, we are in the process of introducing an e-voucher system that will enable these women to access to finance through innovative financing model, where they don't really have to get the cash, they only get the vouchers, and then they redeem to the stores where they get the necessary inputs so that they are able to do their job better. We also provide them with access to high quality fingerlings, feeds, and equipment. So women really play a very great role in aquaculture. And I have to emphasize on the importance of gender inclusion in the aquaculture sector. Because aquaculture in Kenya and the whole of Africa is male dominated currently. I'm thinking like, if we can include more women in aquaculture, then we are going to facilitate more resilience and growth in the sector, because this women participation will help us get more diverse perspective and also innovative products in the market. Secondly, it will also help us to build inclusive blue economy. That means that by the end of the day, we have equitable growth and resource sustainability. Hence, it will improve the overall economic development and food security of the country. So in my journey until now, there are several insights and learnings that have come with. In our journey, we've worked with 20 women, and our goal is to work with 1,000 women fish farmers in the next 3 years. And we've seen 30% increase in their income. They have better technical skills right now, and we also provide them with better market access. Another example of a successful story is from Eco Network Africa Foundation that piloted a project that empowered 400 women. This enabled them to increase their income because they were given necessary resources like boats where they could go and do fish farming with. And in terms of my personal perspective around this is that for us to make gender inclusion in the blue economy, in the aquaculture to happen, we need to override on the power of education and also provision of resources for these women. For us to also ensure that all these impactful projects that we're working on to be continual, it means that we need to build support around these women so that they are able to have collective action and also voices, so where they are able to put their concerns together. And this, in the end, will promote resilience within the communities. As I said, I can't imagine myself living without fish, and I can't imagine going back to my grandmother without eating fish. I don't want to be in a situation whereby we are being deprived of such a very good and delicious meal such as fish. And I don't want people from my community also to lack source of protein, which is fish. And that is why I'm exploring all of you. I'm asking all of you to join us in empowering women in aquaculture, because this is not just a pathway to economic growth. It is the cornerstone of promoting a resilient and sustainable blue economy. Let us join hands together and empower women in aquaculture through data-driven solutions. My name is Elizabeth Okulo. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that really inspiring talk. It's amazing to see the work that you're doing and the numbers and the projections that you're hoping to empower over the next few years. It's really good work and great to hear about. I just want to quickly start the discussion session amongst yourselves. And I was wondering if any of yourselves as speakers had questions from listening to one another's talks that you would like to ask each other before I start on the question and answer session.
Hi, I do have a question for Elizabeth.
Go ahead.
It's a great presentation, and yeah, wow, I think you really brought a whole new dimension to the topic. I think where you are, you're fighting on very important aspects of society and women. So my question to you is, you know, sometimes we give people everything they need to do better, but they don't always pick up these tools. So just wonder if you have ever found any obstacles in helping these women that you had never considered you were gonna find. Maybe, you know, mentality, or maybe women themselves who don't feel confident enough to take up these new tools and opportunities. Has anything like that happened during your journey?
Yes, so last year when we started the whole business, like our entry into the market was to start with providing these tools and resources to these fish farmers, and then we later on realized that they had bigger problems that, for example, getting access to reliable market. And we had seen issues of some organizations who were giving them access to inputs like fish feed and fingerlings, and some of them were not paying for them in the end, even if they made an agreement that, you know, we're going to pay little by little. So as such, it informed our business model in the sense that we thought that if we really want to help them, we need to lock the market component so that they have the confidence that by the end of the day, they're going to farm and they're going to sell this produce. So that is the leverage that we are working with, and that is helping us to navigate the challenges around the fish farmers not really paying us back for the inputs that we give them. And then the second aspect is because we know that not all of them have background in aquaculture. Some of them are just high school dropouts. Some of them even did not go to high school. So we work with extension officers who are in-house, who train them on these basic things like this is how you should manage your pond, this is how you should feed, this is how to know that the fish is struggling, this is how you should do this and that. So it gives them the know-how and also the technical skills so that they're not just being there for the sake of doing this, but also they're doing it because they also have a bit of knowledge, but also relying heavily on the expert to help them.
Thank you.
Amazing, thanks. Yes, Ita, go ahead.
Yes, yep. Thank you, Helen. Thanks, Elizabeth and also Elena. It's very good thought, and then I can, you know, get some insight as well on farm from the Elizabeth and also for the processing. So I have a questions for Elena for the processing unit. For example, in the industry, in the aquaculture, mainly they will do the gender mainstreaming, like provide kind of the facilities for women because it's part of the eco-label or certifications. So for the farming. And then I'm curious for the processing unit, in addition to eco-label, what others motivation that can lead for the gender mainstreaming in the processing unit? Have like a better trade for the woman. Is there any, in addition to eco-label or certification, is there any trigger or incentive that can be motivate those gender mainstreaming? Thanks.
Thanks, Ibu Wita. Thank you for your question. So I think in most certifications, but probably all of them actually now, they would have a really big section on social sustainability. And all the requirements are normally based on the ILO conventions. However, all the certifications that I work with, which I think are pretty much all of those that exist in the aquaculture sector, there isn't any very specific requirement in terms of gender equality. What I mean with that is they don't require companies to achieve certain targets. They ask companies to demonstrate that there is no discrimination, which is a very different thing from demonstrating that there is that input at different levels. So that is not part of the certifications right now. So that push, so the focus is on the absence of discrimination. But obviously, because it's a cultural issue, is absence of discrimination means that we are not looking at the presence of the unconscious bias, which is really what keeps us where we are right now. I think most companies that see a progression in the integration of women along the supply chain do so as their own initiative to provide social sustainability for the company.
I have a question for Peter.
Yes.
Yeah, so I recognize that we have more or less similar challenges within the aquaculture sector in Africa with Indonesia. I wanted to know, like, the women in aquaculture, are they organized in groups so that at least it can promote collective bargaining and also to do more to bring resources together? And if they're organized in groups, so how do you manage these groups, and what are some of the challenges that you face with these women who are organized in group versus women in aquaculture who are doing it as a lone wolf?
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's an excellent question. So yeah, women in aquaculture is depend on the which stage they are. For example, for the shrimp farming, there is very less women in a group because mainly player are men. So that's why it's very rare to us to see a woman for the shrimp supply chains. While for the seaweed, yes, they do make a group. It's based on, for example, group A will be embedded with the group of farming in the certain areas. They do make a kind of the group. While the others is, for example, fish is not much the woman group. So that's why I very much highlighted the importance of the intervention to build, to develop the woman group. So make it there have a one voice, good the positions or decision making, bargaining positions. That will be great. And then how to manage this group? Mainly the group is commonly in the processing, whether in the big industrial processing unit, they have a woman group, or in the local community group, for example, the household scale, the small scale, the micro scale of the processing unit, mainly they are doing group. Some certain intervention, for example, the certifications of the product, they are accepting for a group certifications. That one of the, I can see that the kind of the entry point as well to have a benefit or incentive of being a group of women. And currently we also kind of encourage the government, because normally the card for the fisher, for example, the card and also the ID card for the fisher and also the aquaculture farmers, it's mainly giving to men, because women in the status of the ID card mentioned they are main housewife. So there is no fisher woman. It's very rare. It's kind of the process like promoting that women also can put on in their ID card the work they do. For example, the aquaculture farmers or the fishers, by having those type of work in their ID card, it is able for them to access kind of the financial capital from the government, or other support program to access, because fisher and aquaculture farmers, they have specific ID card, which is now it's in the process for us to advocating that women also can put their job in their ID card as the fisher or the aquaculture farmers. Thanks.
That's really impressive. I have a follow-up question on that. Because of the government involvement, how are the regulatory requirements affecting women involvement in the aquaculture?
Yes, mainly for the big industry, we have micro, small, and medium and big scale. For the medium and then big scale, the requirement for the women is more reflect to the ILO or the labor's regulations. While for the woman, for example, for the government program, there is not yet kind of the requirement. It's really depend on the donor's requirement. For example, if government have cooperations with the ADB, World Bank, or others donor that required for GETSI for the gender equality, so the government program will taking into the account the gender equality in this program. But at the moment, there is no regulation yet that required all of the government program need to put at least the numbers or other beneficiaries from the genders balance. So not yet at the moment. So it's really still depend on donor policies.
Yeah, I'm surprised because aquaculture in Indonesia is big compared to Kenya and Africa. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you for making my job a lot easier and continuing the discussion amongst yourself. It's just naturally flowed into something that's been incredibly interesting. I'm not sure if we have any more questions in our chat. I know there was a hand up at one point. Have we lost them? I think we may have lost the person with their hand up, which is a shame because potentially that was a question. I think, Elizabeth, you finished up really nicely by mentioning that empowering women in aquaculture is not just a pathway to economic growth, and it's the cornerstone of a resilient and sustainable blue economy. And I think that's a really important point in that, do we need a fundamental overhaul in this industry where we're putting women at the center, at the foundation of the aquaculture industry, or else do we then become, you know, an add-on or a secondary thought? And what maybe your perspectives are on that. Elizabeth, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's really important because you know, where I come from, like, their role within the community is really important, and if we just let them to slide and just be on the back seat of the aquaculture sector, that means that, you know, we won't be really contributing towards the growth of the sector. So women's role in the aquaculture sector is really critical for growth, for ensuring that we also have more job opportunities, for ensuring that also we continue innovating, because now there is the need for having gender smart aquaculture products in the market. And also at the same time, also more like, how do you bring together both men and female in the aquaculture sector so that issues like insecurities or like theft of fish or things like jaboya practices, male are able to take on this so that such kind of cases are being reduced. So gender inclusion cannot be understated. It has to be, we really need to pay great attention to it so that we are able to grow the sector. Thank you.
Amazing, thanks. And would Elena or Ita like to make any other final remarks before we close today's session?
I think, Helen, the only remark I would like to make is how wonderful it is to be here, all 5 of us. And yeah, meeting Ita and Elizabeth and yourself, I think this is a really great start to trigger change.
Absolutely. And I think we should carry on these conversations afterwards. I think it's been really good meeting you all, and it'd be really interesting to see where we can move forwards from this discussion today. And Ita, any final words from your end, please?
Yes, I agree that I think we need to have kind of the follow-up, at least discussions. It's good to have the sharing for the industrial processing perspective from Elena's and also from Elizabeth. It's very interesting. It's quite similar situation if I see from Elizabeth presentations. So I do agree that we cannot do as business as usual, because gender mainstreaming is still need something that we enhance, strengthens, not only at the fisheries or aquaculture sector, but whole the government sectors, because it's not solely stand by themselves. Okay, we just work on the on farm. No, we need to work in the whole sector. For example, financial literacy is important, and also that Pierre also addressing the how successful women, because they are not considering the income they earn, but also how to spend the income to make the business sustainably. Thanks, Helen.
Well, thanks again to all of our fantastic speakers today. It's been really inspiring listening to all your perspectives and stories. So I am really excited to move forward and carry on this conversation afterwards. Thanks to all of our attendees as well. Thanks to her for organising today's seminar. And hopefully we'll see you all soon at our next one, which will hopefully be in a few weeks' time. So hope everyone takes care and have a lovely rest of your day or evening. Good night to Ita. Thanks again for the late evening. Take care, everyone. Thank you.